Good morning!
Morning.
What happens when we fight?
We win!
When we fight!
We
We
win!
gotta have a chant, we gotta have lots of chants across this conference. Good morning, my name is John Schleuss, brothers, sisters, family. I am the president of the NewsGuild CWA, so I get to represent journalists, interpreters, nonprofit workers all across North America. And this panel is gonna be all about worker power in the age of artificial intelligence. Exactly. If y'all have read the news lately, and hopefully you have, because more and more of the news is made by your union family. NewsGuild members represent more than 27,000 workers across North America, and so a lot of news outlets have been unionizing. So if you're reading that news, you probably have seen a lot of billionaires yapping about artificial intelligence. You probably have seen corporations talking about how great AI is going to be. But you don't hear a lot about the protections. And we know that we cannot trust big corporations or tech firms or the oligarchs or the boss to self-regulate artificial intelligence in the workplace, right?
Right.
Regulation is happening a little bit in Congress and in state legislatures, but it's also happening in a place that we have full control, which is the bargaining table. While elected leaders in Congress are still hashing things out, we have to have a multifaceted fight. So we're going to talk about the real harms that AI is creating, as well as policy solutions and the strategies that we need to address those harms. So I want to introduce this great panel. First up to your left of me, Representative Chris DeLuzio here. He represents Pennsylvania's 17th district, and Representative DeLuzio and I first met on the picket line in Pittsburgh. And then we met again on the picket line in Pittsburgh. And then we met again on the picket line in Pittsburgh. For 3 years and 1 month and 1 week, we were on strike at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and Representative DeLuzio stood with us every single day. He's also one of the only members of Congress who is co-sponsoring every single bill in the worker power agenda that we're working on here at this conference. To Chris's right and left for you, Susan DeCarava here, president of the NewsGuild of New York, local 31003. Susan and I go back about 6 years. We were elected together, and a bunch of rowdy sort of leaders who wanted to make the union catch on fire a little bit more. She represents now 5,000 workers across about 40 different workplaces, everywhere from the New York Times to Reuters to ProPublica to The Nation to the Amsterdam News, you name it. If it's in New York City, she's probably got a piece of that, and she's building fire with our members there. And finally, we've got Ylonda Sherrod. She's the executive vice president of CWA Local 3519, which represents more than 400 workers at AT&T in South Mississippi near Biloxi.
Yeah.
We're both from the South. I'm originally from Arkansas, so I'm like, us, Mississippi, Arkansas, we have to stick together because we're usually like 49 and 50th, in the state lineup, so we got to stick together and fight together. So let's talk about the current landscape. So Ylonda, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Susan. I want you to tell me, how has artificial intelligence changed your daily work and the work of our members? And what concerns do you have about artificial intelligence, and what do our members have about surveillance, privacy, and job loss?
Where will I start? So whenever the customer first call in, I work at a call center, AT&T customer service. Whenever the customer calls in, the first point of contact is AI, and it's called Andy. So his name is Andy. The customer is struggling to get to a human, especially if they're elderly. So the experience is, I feel like the company trusts AI more than they trust a human. Human experience cannot be replaced by AI. Creativity, what we can provide to the customer, down to credits, that's AI based. down to note taking, that's AI based. Down to your breaks and lunches, that's AI because it tells you when you're supposed to go to break. If you go over your break, tells you when you're supposed to go to lunch, if you go over your lunch.
It's just controlling your life.
Yes, it is. And I feel that, me being 20 years in, I really don't need, I appreciate the support, but I don't need to be assisted in that way.
You know how to do your job.
Yes, absolutely. So it's definitely a turn from when I first started, thinking about skill and qualifications. We don't need that anymore because all you have to do is sit at the desk, move the mouse a couple times, and AI do the rest. So, of course, my coworkers feel like, they are younger, so they don't know what AI truly is doing to us. It's replacing jobs. In my opinion, the company is not transparent enough about AI, so it's not a big talk in the call center because they really don't know truly what it is. And they don't have to do all the work, so most of them are happy about it in a way because they don't have to do anything but sit at the desk. You don't have to think about anything. It's no critical thinking. You just go in and it does the rest. So I really appreciate AI, but I think it should be just for support, not to take over my job, because I know how to do my job myself. I'm very independent. So
you got 20 years of experience.
Yes, absolutely.
Susan, what are you seeing in newsrooms?
Well, a lot of what you're talking about in a different context, right? Real frustration with a lack of transparency, a lack of accountability. And I want to take a moment and just kind of set the stage a little bit. So, most people, you all read the news. You see it on your phone or you watch it on TV. Most journalists are working rank and file people just like everyone else in this room. They don't go into journalism to get rich. The people that you see, the talking heads, represent a very, very small percentage of the members that I represent. Journalists go into the profession because they want to tell stories, because they want to represent and reflect the communities that they live in, the injustices that they see their neighbors struggling against, or the beauty of what we as human beings have produced in terms of culture and art and creativity. And so when bosses, media bosses, come in and say your perspective or your judgment that a story is worth covering doesn't count because AI is saying it's not going to bring enough hits, because AI says it's not important, that does a disservice not just to the work that they do, but to your ability to access information and knowledge that's critical to your life. Many journalists feel a sense of mission. It's very personal for them, right? And so when we are struggling and fighting in a collective bargaining environment, when we are struggling as a union to hold media bosses accountable, it is something that we feel very acutely. And we see it in a lot of different ways. We see it in deciding what to cover. We see it in stories no longer being edited by another human being, but by a program which strips out essential data, and then our people have to fight to get it back in. No, we really need to talk to this community activist. Their quote is important. It provides context. We see it in performance evaluations. I don't know how many people have experienced this, but it's pretty scary to think that your work is being assessed by a program and then determining the value of your work, which then determines how much money you make and what your raise is going to be. And there's no counterbalance to it except our ability to fight against the incursion of those kinds of programs in our workplace. Talk about worker surveillance, right? Are you doing your job? How many keystrokes are you engaged in? Are you, tagging into the office or not? There's so many ways in which the use of these artificial programs are a detriment to the working lives of media workers and journalists and media tech workers, but all of that also has a larger ripple effect and implication as a detriment to all of you as consumers of news and consumers of information. So it's really concerning.
Congressman DeLuzio, what are you hearing from your constituents? And what worries you the most about unregulated AI without any federal guardrails?
Well, what I hear is a similar story and version to what Susan and Ylonda just talked about. Of number one, a lot of people, no matter their journalism, call centers, they're seeing the boss and powerful employers look to find ways to use this technology to replace workers.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. The tools may be powerful and complicated, but they're trying to find ways to use them to take away having to pay somebody for a job.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people who I represent and are all over this country, they know these tools are powerful. Maybe they're playing around with ChatGPT or Claude or something. They know it, right? They know it's powerful. And I'm sure they've found some applications where it might make sense. But they're also really worried, especially if they've got kids who are, in high school age or even a little older, trying to make their way or think about their way in the world, and worried what jobs might get replaced because this technology is so powerful. And they look at the Congress and they said, you guys have done nothing.
Yeah.
And to connect it back
Things are going great over there.
Yeah,
Right?
look, let me connect it back to your union and the labor movement, okay? The fact that you can bargain and you've got some power on the job to say something about whether and how this tool is used in journalism or in a call center is a really powerful thing. And it's why, for as long as robber barons have been around, they don't want you to have collective bargaining rights.
That's right.
That's correct.
It is fundamentally about power. And whether you've got an ability to negotiate something, and I think it's a very powerful force in this country that they want to bring to bear, but it's just a different and new technology to do the same stuff they've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And your union and the fact that you can bargain and frankly demand something, or even have a seat at the table of developing these tools, that's a powerful thing, and there's a reason they don't want you to have that power.
Yeah, absolutely. Ylonda, you were talking about elderly customers when they call in. What's the quality of service like for customers who are experiencing Andy calling in when they're trying to get to a real person calling customer service?
They're angry by the time they get to you, because if you think about it, I done talked to Andy about 10 minutes and Andy hasn't been able to resolve my issue. I don't know how to use work by phone, so if this call hang up, I'm gonna have to call back, and by the time I get a human, I'm just letting all my frustration out. Yeah. So the elderly, they tend to, technology is not something they rely on like we do, They shouldn't be made to feel like that. They are the consumer. They have a right to choose who they want to talk to, you know what I mean? So being forced to, that leaves a sour taste in the consumer's mouth.
Do you have any this is kind of off script, but do you have any hacks to just get straight to a customer service?
I want to add a line. I want to add a line.
Because I'm yelling representative over and over.
I'm
Not just the elderly.
Yeah.
I just babble. I start cursing
I want to
at
add
the
a line.
robot. I'm like, and I'm nice as pie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Susan, you were talking about, what happens when we stop relying on human judgment, and news tends to get real bad, real bad.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of AI slop, just in misinformation and disinformation, and just I would call straight up garbage being put on websites that's written by a robot, not a human, and no one even wants to read it. But tell me what your local, the NewsGuild of New York, has done to ensure that there are real worker input, like Representative DeLuzio was talking about, at the bargaining table. What have y'all won? Give me a couple examples.
So we fight really hard to have in our collective bargaining agreements language that puts power in the hands of the people who are actually doing the work, right? So everything from demanding that our employers are transparent, not just internally, sometimes they'll try and sneak in an AI program and not tell anybody about it, and then all of a sudden it pops up on your computer and someone's like, what am I supposed to do with this? But externally as well. If a story goes out and it's using artificial intelligence program, it should say this story was reported by the human being that did it with support from the tools. We want to have our members have a real meaningful say in developing the tools, because a lot of times, and I know this is a common boss experience, right? Someone comes who knows nothing about what you do, has never picked up a phone, answered a call, written a story, and is sitting across a table from you telling you, this is gonna make your life so much easier. You're gonna love it. This is like a great thing for us, because we're all getting paid what you paid, right? And we really feel like when it comes to this kind of deeply subjective, human-centered work that reporting is, that the reporter should have a say in the development of the tools that may actually help them, right? We don't need a tool to tell us what to report on. You tell us what to report on. What we need is a tool that helps us go through the 8 million documents in the Epstein file so we can identify what's going on in this country. So those are the types of things that we bargain for collectively. We also want to make sure in a very frank way that bosses are not using AI to replace our work, right? Many of you live in cities and towns where your local newspaper probably is not as robust as it used to be, if it exists at all, where local coverage has been deeply, deeply decimated. And that is happening because there are 6 companies basically owning almost the entire media landscape in the United States. And those companies are looking to make news a product that can be scaled as opposed to reported, which means that they want to use AI to repurpose stories over and over and over again. It means that they're using AI to manufacture stories, honestly. We've had situations where there have been stories that have been put up with a byline for a reporter who doesn't actually exist. It's an AI program. And our members have fought against that and forced a media boss to take it down. So those are the type of things that we fight for in collective bargaining agreements. We also fight for it legislatively. We want to support as many different ways as possible to keep accountability in reporting and transparency in reporting.
And one of the things y'all should know, ProPublica just had a strike 3 weeks ago over AI to try to get protections, and so we're striking and fighting for it that way too. Representative DeLuzio, because when we fight,
we win.
That's right, okay. So, what are these big tech bro lobbyists doing when they come into Congress and say, what are they saying to you? What are you hearing from them? Because money, they have so much money when they come to lobby.
We could have a whole treatise discussion about money in politics, which, by the way, gets to the core of the problem. One of the largest spenders in elections now are a lot of these different competing AI interests and groups. They are spending a lot in both parties' elections to get outcomes, and there's disagreement even within the way they're spending money of no rules, some rules, so they're fighting themselves. I think at its core, again, these aren't new stories. They don't want rules and guardrails. They don't want restrictions. They don't want the public to have input. They don't want workers to have input. And I see this even on a fight we've been having around smartphones and screens in schools where, the tech companies don't want us to be asking questions there. They want that data. They want to get the ability to mine data from kids. And so again, it's the same power dynamic. We're seeing the same kind of fights play out. And they don't want the public, they don't want the government to erect rules of the road. They don't want you on your job to be able to bargain to have rules of the road in your workplace. Again, these are not new stories to me. It's just new technology in a different front of a fight we've been having for a long time in this country.
Yeah, well, let me just switch back to that. What steps, you've heard, the concerns that we've got on the stage, but you've heard it from your constituents too. After hearing all those concerns and ideas, what steps should Congress actually take? And are you working on any bills that could help address this?
When I first got elected in 2022, and by the way, thank you for some help. There was a proposal that should have gone somewhere 4 years ago about a national commission to really study this with experts. That's 4 years too late now. This is already here. It's already happening. And we've seen efforts that failed, thankfully, in the Congress to even block the states from having rules around AI.
That's right.
Almost unanimously failed in the Senate. So we've been on defense even to block some really dangerous stuff from coming out of some people in the Senate or the House. I think we got to go the other direction. We have to, number one, I've got some bills to block the ability of the boss to use these tools for worker surveillance, to block organizing. But again, this is just another tool and a new and powerful one they're using for the same things they've done. So I also come back to bargaining rights and the power to organize and laws like the PRO Act, which you don't think are about AI, but they are about worker power. And I think you got to have democratic control, small d, in our country around powerful technologies, and you got to have small d democracy on the job as well, and Congress should be doing things on both those fronts.
So let's just do one more question here for the entire panel, and looking at the big picture, what role can working people have in making sure technology is safe for everyone? What's the most important thing that we need to know to turn ideas into real change? And maybe, Ylonda, let's start with you, and then we'll work down and do quick answers.
Action. If you think about it, how the companies are putting all this money into AI, right? They can give us more money. You know, we are doing the job.
That's right.
I also think that we have a Keep Call Center in America Act. We could actually get that implemented. You know what I mean? That will put some boundaries on what AI can and can't do, because, you know, if you think about it, it is actually growing so quickly.
Yep.
From the time I went to the White House when the Biden administration was there until now, it has really taken off. So
All right.
I think bargaining.
Susan, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, everything that you said, 100%. I think also, and this is demonstrated here in this conference on these past few days, but understanding how much in common we have, even though we work in different sectors and different professions, that these are fundamentally boss versus worker problems, right?
Yeah.
These are not specific to like media or telecom or airlines. These are common problems, and it's all about controlling what we are able to do and what we are able to accomplish. There is plenty of money just rolling around out there.
Yep.
It is so much money. And you know, I think about one of the things that reason why as media we think of AI as kind of an existential crisis, not just for journalism, but for our country and for democracy, is because at some point you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
And if you don't know what you don't know, you can't fight for it, you can't agitate for it, you can't organize against it, and you can't bargain for it. And so fundamentally, we have to keep up the fight to make sure we understand our value, and we make sure that we are sharing that information generation after generation, so that we do know the information that they're trying to keep from us in order to have the fights that we need to have successfully.
That's right. Representative DeLuzio, you're going to keep joining us on the picket line?
Oh, yeah. I'll see you out there.
Hell yeah. All right. We got to fight in Congress, we got to fight in our state legislatures, and we got to fight at the bargaining table. All right, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.